What really happens when Atom Eve finds out she's pregnant and Invincible is about to leave on a suicide mission? We open up at Greason's house. Mark is standing outside the bathroom door, completely oblivious to what's happening inside. He's casually knocking, making jokes about how she left her pants out here and that it sends the wrong signal. He thinks everything is fine. He asks if she needs anything and Eve just screams through the door, "Go away!" But when we cut to the inside of the bathroom, the reality hits us like a truck. Eve isn't just upset. She is having a complete breakdown, sitting on the floor holding a positive pregnancy test. She is carrying a half Viltrumite child, and she knows the timing couldn't possibly be worse. Later that evening, Mark flies in through the window. It's time. He has to leave for the Viltrumite war, and the gravity of the situation is finally crushing him. They lay in bed and Mark starts pouring his heart out. He is apologizing for everything. He tells Eve he is sorry for dragging her into his chaotic life, saying if she was with anyone else, she wouldn't have to deal with this danger. He admits that he is terrified. This isn't just a battle, it's a war between two impossibly powerful forces, and Mark flat out says, "I don't know if I'm powerful enough to survive this." He starts to say, "If I die," but Eve physically cannot hear those words. She cuts him off. She tells him to stop talking and just hold her until he has to leave. As they lay there in the dark, a single tear rolls down Eve's face. Mark thinks she is crying because he might not come back, but we know the real reason. She's crying because if he dies out there, she has to raise his superpowered baby all alone. We cut to nearly a year later, the Viltrumite war is over, and Mark has finally made it back to Earth. He is standing in his living room and the tension is absolutely suffocating. Nolan has just returned to Debbie, and right as Nolan drops the legendary question, "Who is Paul?" Mark's eyes practically bulge out of his skull. He realizes his mom is about to end this man's whole career. Mark doesn't even want to be in the splash zone for this argument, so he literally just says, "What? Okay, I'll be back," and flies straight out the window to go find Eve. Mark flies straight to Eve's house, expecting this massive romantic movie-level reunion. He rips the curtains back with a huge smile. "War's over. I'm back. Finally, everything can go back to normal." But Eve isn't jumping into his arms. She is sitting at her computer desk in the dark and she immediately covers her face. She is crying and she tells him to stop. She begs him not to come any closer, and to the audience, this seems crazy. Why is she hiding from the man she loves? This brings us to one of the most shocking visual changes in the entire comic series. Eve turns around and she says the most heartbreaking line, "I don't want you to look at me." During the 10 months Mark was gone, Eve fell into a severe crushing depression. Believing Mark was dead caused her to completely let herself go, resulting in massive weight gain. She is completely ashamed of her body right now, but Mark proves why he is the absolute GOAT here. He doesn't hesitate. He doesn't care what she looks like. He rushes in, wraps his arms around her, and tells her he loves her, holding her while she completely breaks down. They eventually move to the bed, finally catching up after almost a year apart. Eve tells him that Bulletproof has been keeping the superhero business running, and she drops a massive lore detail. She says her powers stopped acting up. Remember, her powers were malfunctioning because the Viltrumite baby was draining her energy. Mark asks why she's still living in her childhood bedroom instead of building their dream life in Africa. Eve looks completely hollow and admits that with him gone, she just didn't see the point in living that life anymore. Mark realizes how badly he messed up. He starts apologizing profusely, saying he can't believe he did this to her. He says the words 10 months out loud and tries to justify it. He explains that out in space, it was easy to lose track of time, but then he drops the ultimate bombshell. "I spent a lot of that time in a coma, so for me it went fast." Eve just stares at him, tears streaming down her face. She spent the last 10 months drowning in grief, thinking the father of her child was dead. And the final panel is just pure raw shock as her brain finally processes his words. "You were in a coma?" Before Mark and Eve can even process their trauma, the real world comes knocking. We cut to Eve hanging out at William and Rick's place. William is being incredibly salty, complaining that Mark just got back from space and hasn't even bothered to come see him. Eve actually defends Mark, explaining the whole radioactive Nolan is back situation with Debbie. But then William drops the hammer. He looks at Eve and asks, "Did you tell him?" This completely changes the context of the story. William already knows. Eve has been carrying a massive dark secret about her pregnancy for months, and she confided in William while Mark was in a coma. The dread on Eve's face is devastating. She holds her head, tears forming, and just says, "William, I don't know how." The audience is left screaming. What did she do? What happened to the baby? Later that day, Mark and Eve are flying over to the Immortal and Duplicate house, but look at Eve's body language. She is miserable. She confesses to Mark that she absolutely hates being in her superhero costume. Because of her severe depression and the weight she gained while he was gone, she feels exposed and horrible. And Mark completely fumbles the bag. Instead of listening to her pain, he just tells her to shut up and stop fishing for compliments. He is desperately trying to force everything back to normal, completely oblivious to the fact that Eve is suffering suffocating in her own skin. They land, and Immortal and Kate answer the door. They didn't just invite Mark and Eve over for a casual dinner. They invited them over to flex. Kate immediately introduces them to their newborn twins, little Abraham and Mary. Look at the middle panel. Mark is smiling, totally clueless, saying, "What a couple of cuties." But Eve's eyes are wide. She is staring at the exact life she was supposed to have. The universe is literally dangling a happy superhero family in front of her face, and it's torturing her. It gets so incredibly toxic. The girls take the babies to the bathroom to bathe them, and Kate just starts ruthlessly bragging. She lacks any self-awareness. She brags about having the Immortal completely wrapped around her finger. Retire? Done. Marriage? Okay. Big expensive house? Sure thing. Kids? Absolutely. She is living the absolute dream, rubbing it in Eve's face. And then the absolute worst thing happens. Kate hands one of the babies to Eve. Look at the final panel. Eve is holding this child, staring at it, and you can visibly see her soul leaving her body as she thinks about her own pregnancy. This is the breaking point. Holding that baby shatters every single mental wall Eve had left. The tears start pouring down her face. Kate, completely confused, asks, "Eve, are you okay?" Eve just stares blankly and whispers, "No, I'm not." She physically cannot bear the weight of holding this child. She frantically shoves the baby back into Kate's arms, stuttering, "Please take him," and covers her face. She sprints straight out of the bathroom, leaving Kate absolutely stunned. Mark follows her outside into the dark driveway. Eve tries to play it off, desperately wiping her tears and lying, saying she just needed some air. But Mark pushes her, and this shows exactly how disconnected Mark is right now. He asks, "Did Kate say something?" He assumes this is just petty girl drama. He has absolutely no idea that the foundation of their entire relationship is about to crack open. And then she drops it. The mystery of the last 10 months is finally solved, and it is the heaviest bombshell in the entire Invincible comic run. She wraps her arms around herself, looks Mark dead in the eyes, crying, and says, "I had an abortion." The camera cuts to a massive close-up of Mark's face. He is completely hidden in the shadows, his eyes wide with pure, unfiltered shock. All he can whisper is, "What?" This is the exact moment the series shifts from superhero fiction to raw, brutal reality. Mark's brain completely short-circuits. "You were pregnant?" he asks. Eve explains through her sobbing that she was completely alone. She thought he was dead, she wasn't ready, and she couldn't raise a Viltrumite hybrid by herself. Mark's initial reaction is pure selfish anger. How could you? But reality quickly sets in. He realizes this is his fault. He chose the war over his family, and this is the consequence. He pulls her in, both of them absolutely weeping in the driveway, apologizing. But wait! While they are having the most tragic private moment of their lives, Kate is watching them through the window like a complete creep and tells Immortal, "I give them another week, tops." She just can't keep a man happy. Too many issues. Bro, are you kidding me? The absolute disrespect from Duplicate. After a revelation that heavy, there are literally no words left to say. It is easily one of the most powerful pages in the entire comic. The first two panels are just silhouettes of Mark and Eve standing in the driveway, clinging to each other in the dark. The universe-ending threats, the Viltrumite Empire, none of it matters right now. And then we get that massive, devastating close-up in the third panel. Look at their faces. There's no dialogue bubble, but you can feel the shared trauma. They are both just staring at each other, fully realizing the irreversible damage that the Viltrumite war did to their real human lives. The story transitions by jumping to the very next morning. Mark's mom, Debbie, is leaving Earth on a spaceship, and Mark and Eve are just standing on the porch in their pajamas. Mark casually says, "Well, this has been an eventful few hours. It is the understatement of the century." They try to joke around a bit about moving into the empty house, desperately trying to act like a normal couple again. They are using humor to cope, but beneath the surface, you can feel this heavy, unresolved tension just hanging in the air between them. Later that night, Mark closes the curtains and gets into bed. Eve is facing away from him, staring blankly at the wall. Mark reaches out, puts his hand on her shoulder, and gently tries to bring it up. He says, "Eve, about last night. Look at that close-up of Eve's eye. It is wide open. The pain is still so fresh." She immediately shuts him down, saying, "Really, I just don't want to talk about it anymore." Mark just replies, "Okay," and pulls her in close. It's a tragic ending to the chapter. The secret is finally out, but the wound is still wide open. Mark realizes that fixing this isn't going to take a heroic speech, it's going to take time. And that is exactly where we are leaving it today. Mark and Eve's relationship has completely changed forever. But what do you guys think? Will the show also adopt this, or you think it will be changed? Or did Eve make the right choice considering the circumstances? Let me know down in the comments. Please be sure to like, share and subscribe, and you can watch Omni-Man's return here. I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.